Thank you for watching Sunday Kickoff presented by Grand Lighthouse Coffee. Make sure you go to grandlighthousecoffee.com and use promo code EastWest when you order, and Grand Leyenda Tequila. For more information, make sure you go to grandleyenda.com, the official tequila of the East West Football Network. How's everyone doing out there?
Great.
Awesome.
Hope everyone had a great Christmas. But we got a busy day, so let's get started. Let's talk about last week. Quick recap. What stood up to you guys the most in Week 15? Start off with Jerry.
Man, it's kind of hard. Did you see yesterday's game with the Raiders and Dolphins?
Oh, that's Week 16 though. But yeah, I saw those games.
I mean, it's kind of hard to even go back a week. You know what I mean?
It seems like it's been 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, it feels like it. I mean, we've been seeing games for almost every day now. You know what I mean? So. But I know we had talked about this in the podcast. I think that we had said that you know, obviously the Dolphins. I mean, this is something that we had in the podcast. I said, wow, look at the Dolphins; they're doing real good for themselves. And we also talked about the Bears, right? Could they sneak in to? Could they be that last player, that last team to kind of sneak into the playoffs? So when you put it up in a nutshell. What do we really know, right?
Isaac.
What stood out to me was someone that's not even in this league, Trevor Lawrence. He's coming off that game where he pummeled Notre Dame, and he finds out that the New York Jets win a game. So now Jacksonville is in prime position to take him number one if the season plays out the way it is. Also, the Steelers stood out to me, losing their third straight. They were defeated by the then 2-10-1 Cincinnati Bengals without Joe Burrow, without Joe Mixon. This team looks lost right now, and I just don't have a lot of hope for them going into the postseason.
Sonia.
I would agree. I would say the Steelers definitely, they look like they don't know what they're doing. They look like they don't know how to play football right now on offense. But another game that stood out to me that I think was kind of like a precursor to Week 16 was the Chargers and the Raiders. We saw the Raiders do very Raidery things. Sorry for Dale.
Yep.
Between last week and this week. And I think that what, like I said, foreshadowed what happened, yesterday. So.
Walter.
Yeah, for me, it's the Seattle Seahawks. Even though, they won, how pedestrian they've looked over the past few weeks. If you think about it, outside of that Jets game, they've played pretty below average to average in all those other games, pretty much. And that's going all the way back to when Buffalo dropped 44 on them. Now they've got a real tough game, a monster game coming up today with the Rams. If they lose that game, they run the risk. Well, they won't be running the risk. If they lose that game today, Rams take the season series and then pretty much take full control of that division. So Seattle runs the risk of falling out of the spot they're in now to being actually a team on the road in the playoffs in the first round.
Coach.
I think the biggest one for me, you guys mentioned the Steelers against the Bengals. The other one was the Jets beating the Rams. I mean, the Rams was poised to just walk away with this thing, and the Jets says, hold up. I know Jacksonville's happy this morning, but boy, that was a huge loss.
Yeah, what stood out to me was Pittsburgh. They got some issues, and they got another big game today against the Indianapolis Colts. So we'll see. I mean, Coach, let me ask you this: do you think it's coaching? Do you think it's players? Like, what do you think the issue is in Pittsburgh?
Injuries. When I look at what's going on, I nobody really thinks about this. I'm gonna go way out there somewhere. COVID-19. I mean, the stress of winning at a high level, 11 games, but dealing with so many other things that were happening in their team. All the injuries, it looks like they have hit a wall. And that's the reason why I'm saying that. They look like a team that is uninterested in doing anything. The quarterback looks different. The offense looks totally different. The defense, which is what they pride themselves in, regardless of the offense doesn't play, looks different. They gave up 27 points to Cincinnati Bengals. There is an issue there. And I just think at some point in time, this season was going to wear on some team. And that might be the team that it caught.
And we'll see how they fared today against the Indianapolis Colts.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Quick recap of Friday and Saturday football. So New Orleans Saints 52, Minnesota Vikings 33, and they officially are eliminated from the playoff contention. Yesterday's action: Buccaneers 47, Lions 7. Bucks officially clinch a playoff berth for the first time since 2007. So congrats to the Bucks. Niners with the shocker beat the Cardinals 20-12, and of course last night's game, Dolphins beat the Raiders 26-25, and Las Vegas has been officially eliminated from playoff contention. Now let's check in with Tania for our injuries and COVID-19 report.
Yes. So we already know, like, almost each week there's been a team that's been most impacted by COVID-19. And this week it's the Cleveland Browns. The Browns have shut down their facilities due to contact tracing. They're trying to figure out how are all these cases getting out. But they also delayed their flights to New York today. And all four of their starting wide receivers are ruled out for this game: Jarvis Landry, Rashard Higgins, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and Kadarius Hodges. So after they're all on the COVID-19 reserve list, it is the linebacker and BJ Goodson who tested positive for COVID-19. And this leaves Marvin Hall as the only receiver who was on the 53-man roster that's available to play. But the Browns did elevate Derek Willis, who struggled with injuries, as well as Jamarcus Bradley from the practice squad. Now the Browns are definitely going to be relying on Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb, and that ground game offense. Unfortunately, Isaac is here to kind of give us a rundown of that fantasy update. But also a few weeks ago, the Ravens were the ones who were struggling with the COVID-19 concerns. And the league handed the Ravens a $250,000 fine for COVID-19 violations, and this contributing to the outbreak that was going on in the league. But this may seem like a high number, at least it seems like a big number for me. But this punishment is actually fairly small compared to some of the consequences that the Titans and the Raiders have faced. Baltimore also escaped the fact that they don't have to risk up a draft pick. That's a luxury that the Raiders and the Saints did not have when they were filling out, COVID violations and things like that. But to get more into your injuries, so the Indianapolis Colts and the Pittsburgh Steelers, Fidel, you already mentioned it, they have a big game today. And the Steelers are going to be missing their linebacker, Ulysses Gilbert, with the ankle injury, and linebacker Marcus Allen, another linebacker in the for a shoulder injury, their kicker, Chris Bowell. The Steelers are coming into this game pretty banged up, especially on defense. Indianapolis looking a little bit more healthy than them. Now, the Falcons and Kansas City, for the Falcons, Julio Jones is out. Their defensive back end, Dequise Bernard, is out. Also, Alex Mack, he has a concussion. And for the Chiefs, they're not going to see Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Last week, we saw his devastating injury, that ended up being an ankle injury. And it just did not look pretty. It did not look pretty on camera. But the linebacker, Damian Wilson, is also out with a knee injury. And questionable is Tyreek Hill for his hamstring, and defensive end Frank Clark with the illness, not COVID-related, but illness. Now, for the Chicago Bears and the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Bears will not have their cornerback in Buster Scrine. He has a concussion. They won't also have their rookie cornerback in Jalen Johnson with his shoulder injury, and their tight end Demetrius Harris with a foot injury. Now, Khalil Mack is questionable with his shoulder. Usually, again, he's still able to play. He's come out as active most of the time that he's questionable. Wide receiver Allen Robinson is also on that questionable list, and Akeem Hicks. And the Jaguars, they're missing their wide receiver in Colin Johnson, and their cornerback in Sidney Jones. Sidney Jones out with his Achilles. Now for the Bengals in Houston, wide receiver Tyler Boyd is out with a concussion for the Bengals. Also linebacker Jordan Evans, hamstring. Linebacker Logan Wilson with his ankle injury, and their center and BJ Finley with his abdomen injury. For the Texans, they're going to be down running back, Duke Johnson with his neck injury. Now, the Baltimore Ravens have the chance to walk away with the game, but they are coming in on some questionable injuries against the Giants, being in wide receiver Marquise Brown, wide receiver Dez Bryant, who had his first touchdown last week. That was exciting for him. But cornerback Jimmy Smith is officially ruled out. And for the Giants, Golden Tate is out. His calf injury is bothering him, as well as Darnay Holmes. He is also out with a knee injury. Now, for the Browns and the Jets, the Browns, they're going to be missing their guard in Wyatt Teller. It's questionable for Malcolm Smith, their linebacker, to be in, depending on how his hamstring is feeling. But it's doubtful for the Jets to have their cornerback and Javelin Guidry. His knee injury is bothering him as well. Now, for the Carolina Panthers and the Washington football team, doubtful Christian McCaffrey with his thigh, as well as their cornerback in Troy Pride Jr. Now, for Washington, they're going to be missing their linebacker, Thomas Davis, and doubtful is looking like Terry McLaren is also looking a little doubtful as well. For the Broncos and the Chargers, an official out is Philip Lindsay. He will not be playing for the Broncos tonight. And the Chargers, they will be missing Joey Bosa, who is, we know, a super important part of their defense. And for Dallas and the Eagles will be out in Josh Sweat. They also won't have their tight end and Richard Rodgers. And for the Cowboys, they look like they need some help on the defensive end. Antoine Woods is also going to be out. Xavier Woods is going to be out, and Rashard Robinson. And for Seattle and the Rams, Rams missing their running back in Cam Akers. His ankle is bothering him. And for the Titans and Green Bay, Titans are out on the linebacker with Derek Robertson. And the Packers will not have their safety in Will Redmond or their tight end in Jay Sternberg. So those are all of your injuries that are going on. I would say pay attention to the COVID updates as well, you guys, especially going into the playoffs. But all of these updates are brought to you by Lambs of God Designs. I'm looking kind of comfy right now because I have on this Pray Then Play hoodie that's very comfortable for me, and it's keeping me very, very warm here in this chilly Chicago weather. So I see you, Jerry. Jerry's also rocking his as well.
All right. Thank you, Cynthia, for those updates. All right. Let's talk about the last playoff seeds in each, the AFC and NFC. It's week 16. We got one more week of football to go after this. Let's start off with Jerry. Who do you think are going to clinch the seeds in the AFC and NFC?
Man, I mean, when you looked at it, right, I mean, it looks like pretty much the AFC is kind of set in stone with the teams that they have. But I mean, I kind of feel bad for the Steelers. I mean, I'm pretty sure they're hurting themselves as far as the placement, right? Because you got the Browns who look strong. The NFC was the one that looked kind of iffy. I think you got the NFC East is the one that's up for grabs. I think today, man, you got the Cowboys, the Eagles. Man, I want to say I want to make a bold prediction, but I'm not ready to do that. We'll wait after this game. But what I'll say is, give me Washington football team, right? Of course, from the NFC East, they'll lock it in. And let me see, who was the other one? We'll get back to it right now.
All right, Isaac.
Yeah, I think Washington's going to take that division, being up a game right now. For that last wild card position in the NFC, it always looked like Arizona was in prime position to, take that spot, but they've been playing pretty poor lately. Chicago's on a roll right now. Chicago has the path to make it in now because if they win today, they own the tiebreaker over Arizona. They're playing Jacksonville, and then next week they play Green Bay, who could be without most of their starters because if they win today, they will already secure that number one seed in the NFC. The AFC is a different story. There are a lot of teams that have 10 wins right now. Baltimore can get to that 10-win mark today if they get a win over the Giants. I could see Miami slipping out, though. I know if Buffalo wins today, they won't have a lot to play for, but Miami just looks so dysfunctional at times. They win a lot of close games that really I don't think they deserve because, like in that Raiders game, the Raiders had all control of that game, and they blew it. And the Dolphins don't know which quarterback's going to be their quarterback each series. Tua gets benched for Fitzpatrick a lot, and then they go back to Tua. It just seems a little dysfunctional right now, so I could see Miami slipping out.
Sunil.
Wow.
We'll come back to Sunil. Walter.
Yeah, I agree with Isaac. Everything he said about the Bears. I believe the Bears will get that last spot in the NFC. As far as the AFC, I think it's going to go to the Ravens. I think at the end of the day, it's going to take. It could be historic where we have every playoff team in that conference could have 11 wins. And I think it's going to take 11 wins to get there, period. And I think what's going to happen with Miami, that Buffalo game is still going to be Buffalo, and it's still going to be at Buffalo in December. So I don't have too much confidence in Miami winning that game next week. I do believe the Ravens will go ahead and seize the moment. I think they'll beat the Giants today, and then they'll go on and beat Cincinnati next week, which will put them at 11, and I think they'll go ahead and take that spot right there.
Sonia.
I agree with what everybody said in terms of AFC. I wanted to see the Dolphins, clinch the spot, but like Isaac said, they're looking a little too dysfunctional right now. I mean, even though they may have not deserved those wins, they still won, and that matters. That matters in terms of getting to the playoffs for sure. In terms of the NFC, the Bears. I'm excited to see the Bears get that last spot in the NFC, and I think that will be a definitely confidence booster in Mr. Trubinsky, and we're going to see how that plays out, especially on this offense. Do I see them taking it all day? No, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be realistic here. Okay, guys, chill. But I think that they're definitely going to get that last spot.
Walter. Oh, sorry. Coach.
Well, I think it's all been said. I think when you look at the AFC, I agree with Isaac and Walter and Sonia. Obviously, the Dolphins, the Browns, and the Colts are the last three big teams that, they got to figure it out. And today, how is that going to unfold? Is Colts and the Titans both going to end up with 11 wins today? I mean, because there's a chance it could be that way. The Browns are the team I think is in a bad spot with all the guys that are out because of COVID. And understanding how they're going to have to play that game against a Jets team who has some life now. They beat a big-time team last week. Now they're back at home. So I think that's going to – I see the Ravens getting in, just like Walt said. In the NFC, it's the Rams, the Bears, and the Bucs. That's what it's going to be. That's just how I see it.
Yeah, before yesterday, I had Baltimore penciled to make it, but after Miami got that huge one against the Raiders, I think they're a shoe-in, honestly, because I think Buffalo's going to rest their starters, and I think they're going to be playing good football next week, knowing what's on the line. So AFC, I got Miami, and then NFC, Chicago. I think Chicago's going to make it in. Cardinals, I don't know what happened yesterday. Of course, it's a divisional game, so anything can happen. But knowing what they had on the line, they did not play well. So I got Chicago going in. All right, now it's time for.
Arizona's been bad for a while.
Yeah, they have.
That's going back to when they stalled. Well, I mean, they did win 2 out of 3, but they haven't looked good at all. I think they still got a lot of issues defensively, as far as stopping the run, as far as getting to the quarterback. And I think a lot of people were probably a year ahead of schedule with crowning Kyler Murray as the next one and an MVP candidate in the offseason and having the Cardinals as dark horse Super Bowl contenders. It was just these guys have to go through things. They have to have growing pains. They have to earn everything that they get. And I think this season, even if Kyler doesn't make it, he'll be better for it.
Yes, and yeah, they've been struggling, but I think we're going to see Chicago in the playoffs. All right, now it's time for our weekly fantasy football advice presented by Thrive Fantasy. Make sure you download the Thrive Fantasy app and use the promo code EastWest. And on your first deposit, they will match it dollar per dollar with at least a deposit of $20 up to $50. Isaac, championship weekend. Who should we start? Who should we bench? Who should we pick up on the waiver wire?
Yeah, exciting times right now. Before I get into that, though, I'm surprised we haven't talked about Alvin Kamara. He tied that single game NFL record with 6 rushing touchdowns.
Insane.
To those of you who have him and you are playing in your championship, congrats. You're probably going to win it since he poured in 56.2 PPR points, the most in the fantasy championship era, surpassing Todd Gurley's 2017 performance with 49.6. All right, so now I'll get into it. For the quarterback position, go ahead and start Deshaun Watson. This is why you drafted him in the first place. He's the prime-time quarterback you wanted for your championship run. He hasn't put up insane numbers lately, but his matchup against the Bengals comes in at a great time. Cincinnati is more vulnerable against the run. Houston doesn't really have a running offense, so expect Watson to throw the ball. Expect a lot of rushing opportunities for the mobile QB as well. Before the news about the Browns, Baker Mayfield looked like a lock to start at quarterback. He'd been on a roll, 3 straight games of over 20 fantasy points. But with all those receivers out, it's not as an enticing matchup as it looked before. But still, he's playing the Jets, who we all know is a favorable matchup for quarterbacks not named Jared Goff. The Jets are giving up the 3rd most fantasy points to the QB position this year. It's a risky one, but if you don't have another, a better option, still feel free to put Baker in there. He still has his tight ends. He's still been playing really well lately. Other notables are Jalen Hurts against Dallas. He was the QB1 last week in all of fantasy. And then another rookie, Justin Herbert, going against the Denver Broncos. For running backs, you have to start David Montgomery right now. He's taken over the fantasy world in the past 4 weeks. He's the RB1 during that span, and he's averaging 26.53 PPR points since week 11. On top of that, he has a favorable matchup today against the Jacksonville defense that's given up the 3rd most fantasy points to running backs this season, and he may just be the fantasy football MVP of the second half of the year right now. Another running back, David Johnson, against the Bengals. He's battled back from COVID. He caught 11 passes last week for 106 receiving yards. He also ran the ball 8 times for 27 yards. So he's getting plenty of touches, and it helps that he is a receiving back because if Houston a lot of games, so he contribute in the receiving game. So it's today enticing in PPR leagues. Note are J.K. Dobbins against the Giants, Giovanni Bernard against Houston, and Miles Sanders against Dallas. For the receiver position, Allen Robinson looks primed to have a big game against his former team in the Jacksonville Jaguars. If you're looking for consistency, Robinson has you covered. He's fallen short of double-digit PPR fantasy points just once this season, back in week 2. And he's been targeted at least 5 times in 7 straight games. Also during that, he's top 70 receiving yards in 4 straight. So it helps that, Jacksonville has a tough time defending the pass. And like I said before, this is kind of a revenge game for Robinson going against his former team. So don't be surprised if he puts up over 20 fantasy points in PPR leagues today. Another guy, Cooper Kupp against Seattle. The Seahawks have given up the most fantasy points to wide receivers this season. Their secondaries look poor all season long. And in the first matchup, Kupp only scored 10 PPR points, but expect more out of him this game. He's been consistently one of the better pass catchers in the league this year. And Seattle is coming off a game where they allowed Dwayne Haskins to throw for 295 yards. And in that game, 3 different pass catchers, top 50 receiving yards. So Kupp looks like a sure start today. Other notables, his teammate Robert Woods as well, and Amari Cooper against the Eagles. For tight ends, there's some tight ends coming into the championship week on fire. Logan Thomas is one of those going against the Panthers today. The former college quarterback has been the tight end 3 in the last 4 weeks. He's also scored double-digit PPR points in each of his last 4 games. And in that span, he's also scored 20-plus PPR points twice. Carolina's given up the 8th most fantasy points to tight ends this year, so you have to ride the hot hand in Thomas with a favorable matchup. Unless you have like Travis Kelce, Thomas is a must-start today. Another guy that's playing just as good as him is Robert Tonyan for the Green Bay Packers. He's going against the Tennessee Titans today. He's been just as electrifying as Thomas. He scored double-digit PPR points 5 straight games, and he scored a receiving touchdown in each of those games as well. Among all tight ends in the league, Tonyan is tied with Kelce for the most receiving touchdowns on the season with 10. So it's safe to say that Tonyan is a must-start today. Other notables are Mark Andrews against the New York Giants, and in a deeper league, if you have Cole Kmet, he could have a good game against Jacksonville today as well, as he's seen about 80% of the snaps for that offense. For defenses, Cleveland Browns always start the defense playing the Jets. Yeah. Yes, they're coming off a fluke win over the Rams last week, but that doesn't mean Cleveland won't take advantage and score you plenty of defensive fantasy points. On the season, New York has easily given up the most fantasy points to team defenses. For the sits, you can't trust Jared Goff. We see it. He has a good game one week, and he has is just unpredictable. So it came as a surprise when him and his Rams handed the New York Jets their first win of the season last week. And although his matchup against the Seahawks looks good on paper, like I said, he can't be trusted. This is a week where you have to, rely on guys that you can trust. And in his first matchup against the Seahawks earlier in the year, he only had 10.48 fantasy points. So just be safe and avoid him today. For running backs, go ahead and sit Wayne Gallman Jr. against the Baltimore Ravens. He had a tough matchup last week against the Cleveland Browns. New York's trailing a lot of their games, so they're not really relying on the running game lately. Baltimore has a stout defensive front, and like I said, it's all about being safe this week. It's the championship week, so go ahead and just bench Wayne Gallman Jr. For wide receivers, not really high on Marquise Brown this week against the Giants. He's looked great as of late, but for most of the season, he's been a huge disappointment at that wide receiver position. The Giants have one of the best cornerbacks in the league in James Bradbury. He is in the conversation for defensive back of the year, and he will more than likely line up against Brown for most of the game. So with that in mind, just avoid the speedy receiver today. For tight ends, sit Jonnu Smith. Since week 5, he's fallen short of double-digit fantasy points 7 times. He's coming off an okay game last week where he scored 10.2 PPR points, but he has an unfavorable matchup against the Green Bay Packers. They've given up the 4th fewest fantasy points to his position this year, so just stay safe, avoid him. And I know some of you have the New England Patriots defense still out there. They're playing the Buffalo Bills. The Bills have a lot to play for today. They got a guy named Josh Allen who should tear that defense up. So just avoid that Patriots defense at all costs in your championship matchup. That wraps it up for your Week 16 Fantasy Championship Week advice.
Wow.
All right. Thank you, Isaac. Hey, by the way, I picked up Jalen Hurts. I couldn't believe he was still on the waiver wire, and I picked him up, and I'm starting him today. So hopefully helps me win the championship. All right, guys. Now it's time for our bold predictions for Week 16. Start off with Jerry. I know you said you mentioned one earlier that you kind of wanted to say it, but you weren't sure if you were going to say it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. I've been having second thoughts. You know what I mean? I bet you every man hates to hear that. But anyways, Rams over Seahawks, man. I don't know why. I mean, it just been like one of these things that every NFL team is doing. They come off a weird loss, and then the next week they bounce back against a good team. So I think that the Rams are gonna take this one over the Seahawks today.
Isaac.
I think the Titans-Packers game is going to be a good one. I think it's going to be a shootout. I think there's going to be 60 points or more scored in that game. The Packers are one of the worst teams against the run, so Derrick Henry's going to have a big game. I think he's going to top 150 yards rushing today, but I still think that Green Bay finds a way to hold on, secure the top spot in the NFC.
Walter.
Well, that was pretty solid. Yeah, I mean, for me, I think as far as do I really want to say it? Okay.
Yeah, say it.
I believe the Colts today will go into Pittsburgh and they will give the Steelers their 4th straight loss.
Wow.
Will set everything up because I do believe the Browns will still find a way to win today against the Jets. And that will set up a winner-take-all next week in Cleveland between the Steelers and Browns.
Coach.
That would be beautiful.
I love Walter's pick. I'm with him all the way. But mine for this week is the Jets beat the Browns.
Wow, Coach.
That's bold.
Oh man, hold on a minute.
That's bold.
Let me ask you one thing. Coach. Let me ask you one thing. So the Jaguars, right? Let's say you're in that division, and you're in the Jaguars position. I mean, okay, you're in the Colts position, right? And you've already locked it in, right? You win today's game. You already punched your ticket into the actual playoffs. When do you stop and think, do we really want Trevor Lawrence in this division?
You don't.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Do you care?
Trevor Lawrence.
So let's just say
guys in the locker room.
I'm just saying. Let's just say the Colts locked it up, right? And they face the Jags. Do you think that the coaching staff should be having this talk and saying, you know what, let's rest our starters for that last week against the Jags?
I don't think that's a conversation, Jerry, that gets had.
I'm just saying, man. Trevor Lawrence is gonna tear up that division, man.
Oh, I know
bad.
he is. He will.
Yeah. All right. And then my bold prediction is actually the same as Jerry's. LA Rams to beat Seattle Seahawks. And also Tennessee to go into Green Bay and beat the Packers.
Ooh.
I like.
right.
I think that with that one, that one was gonna be my bold take was the Packers over the Titans, but the Packers defense has been, I don't know, man. They said it's like they can't stop. Running backs are running through it like a pipeline. You know
And
what
you
I mean?
can believe that the Titans are going to run it as much as they can.
Oh yeah, and it's gonna be 22 degrees. It's gonna be snowing.
Yeah.
You know, it's gonna be a running game and a defensive game.
But I'm not gonna count out Aaron Rodgers, man.
No, of course not. But bold prediction, I like the Titans over the Packers. All right, lock to win. Start with Jerry.
Give me the Dallas Cowboys over the Philadelphia Eagles.
Isaac.
Jacksonville doesn't want to win right now. Chicago over Jacksonville. Even if the Bears were to shoot their foot over and over and over again, Jacksonville is going to find a way to lose this game.
I mean, it is the easy way out.
That's fine. Hey, look for Mike Glennon, though, to play really pissed off since Trubisky took over his starting spot back in 2017.
The revenge game, of course.
He's got a lot to prove.
Man, these last 2 weeks are going to be it's going to be incredible. Don't miss any of it.
Mm-hmm.
Walter.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the low-hanging fruit. Chiefs over Falcons.
Oh. All right.
Hey, I could be wrong about that. You know what? Really good teams lose games like that during this time of year from time to time, too. So I don't think that'll be one of them.
Yeah, no. Coach.
I'm going to grab even more low-hanging fruit. Baltimore will beat the Giants today.
Oh, man.
I don't know.
I don't know, Coach.
I don't know.
I'm having like a gut feeling about the
I'm willing to bet. I'm willing to make a personal bet here.
Oh.
Give me the points.
How many points did the Giants have? 4?
No, I think it was 10, wasn't it?
Oh,
I checked it.
Points.
They'll cover it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Giants have a lot to play for, but yeah, I agree. I think Baltimore is gonna handle that loss. All right, and my lock to win: the Colts to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Hey, quick question. How confident, if you're Ron Rivera, how confident can you be in Haskins driving the bus for these next 2 games?
Have you seen the weekend he had last week?
Oh yeah, man.
Dwayne Haskins. How confident would you be?
It gets no better than that.
I mean,
Coach, how confident are you?
Who else is gonna drive the bus?
I have no confidence that Dwayne Haskins could win if they spotted him 14 points.
Just throw my guy Alex Smith out there in crutches. He'll do a lot better job than what Dwayne Haskins would.
I'll roll him out there in a wheelchair if I had to.
Yeah.
Let him not take the ball before I play the other guy.
Yeah. All right. And before we get off this live stream, let's hear Coach Jackson's advice this week. Who are you going to give him the advice to, Coach?
Come on, Coach. I want to hear this.
Advice goes to the Cleveland Browns. They're in the biggest game of the season for them without their wide receivers. The Jets are going to line up and play cover 0 every snap. And if they don't, they have lost their mind. So they're going to have to find ways to run their naked game, to run the football in order to win this game. And the Jets are fired up about playing this game because they have a chance to put a little sting to the Browns and win 2 games in a row. You can believe that if Kevin Stefanski doesn't devise a plan that gives that team the best chance to win this game, it's going to come back and bite them next week. I'm sure he will, but can they win this game? They need to find a way, because if they don't, their playoff aspirations could be dashed.
All right. Thank you for that, Coach. All right. And before we get off, any final thoughts? Start off with Jerry.
Oh man, I mean, this is a crazy week, right? Because just real quick, just to clarify, you had teams in the hunt. These are the teams in the hunt in the NFC. In the NFC, you have Washington with the lead. Rams are still in it. Cardinals were in it. I don't know now after that weird loss. Bears, Cowboys, Giants, Eagles. So that's insane. You got 14 teams in the NFC. So you don't want to miss a game today. I think that we're going to see a lot of shuffling around. I think there was a weird scenario, right? If the Colts lose, then that's how the
Yeah.
Ravens punch your
Yeah,
ticket. Right?
there's a lot of different scenarios in the AFC depending on today's outcomes. But yeah, I believe that's one of them. If they lose out, they would be out of the playoffs, and Baltimore wins out, then they would make the playoffs, and Indianapolis would be out.
Yeah, so it's weird scenarios. And then if I'm the Colts, I'm gonna give a kind of like the coach's advice, but if I'm the Colts, if I punch my ticket and it's secure, I'm gonna rest my starters come the last week. I don't want Trevor Lawrence. Let the New York Jets have him. I'm sorry.
Coach, is that even like a conversation that teams think about, like as far as like towards the end of the season, if games don't mean anything?
They do. Oh,
they do.
Oh no, they have those conversations. There's certain players that need to be rested. I mean, that's been Pittsburgh's. That's been their blueprint for years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but more on the draft positioning, right? So if you see a high draft pick quarterback might be in the division, is that even something that comes up?
I don't think that conversation happens now. GMs might talk about it with head coaches. Ownership might talk about it with GMs. It never filters down to the assistant coach area where the coaches are really responsible for the game out there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Coaches you can't say that. You know, a head coach can't say that to his staff because that bonus is tied. There might be all kind of other implications tied. So that conversation can't be had.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thanks, Coach. Isaac.
I got two things. Good luck to everyone in their fantasy championships. Also, go Bears. Go Bears.
All right. Walter.
Yeah, I just want to touch on the Seattle Seahawks one more time. Huge game today. Must-win game today because there's no guarantee they will beat San Francisco next week. That's a divisional game. The 49ers know how to get tough with the Rams and Seahawks and everybody. So if they don't want to drop down to 5th or 6th or 4th or whatever, I really suggest they win these next two games, starting with today.
Man, Fred Warner is a heck of a player for the 49ers. Let's say that. Mm-hmm. Coach, any final thoughts before we get off?
My thoughts are to you, man. You guys have been sensational. Just listening to you pick all these things apart. You guys have some unbelievable minds on here, and you guys should be getting ready for some GM positions around the National Football League. So I'm going to make sure I advocate for all of you because you guys deserve it. Because you guys talk about more football than some places do in their organizations.
Well, I appreciate that, Coach. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Coach.
All right. And with that being said, thank you everyone out there for watching. Enjoy your games and be safe. We'll talk to you guys next week.